Hi, I'm Katie Coots.
And I'm Jess Wolford.
We both student taught in 2014 for kindergarten, and we're going to share with you today a little bit about our student teaching portfolio that we created for Dr. Liu. To get started creating the portfolio, we bought binders. I chose to buy a 2-inch binder, and I bought the heavy-duty type so that it stays put together the whole time during the semester. And then on the inside, I bought tabs that are the extended length so that it'll stick out past the page protector. I have everything in my portfolio in page protectors, and then the tabs are labeled. I used what Dr. Liu had set out for us on the table of contents, but then I also incorporated some things that I found during the semester that I thought would be important for my future. So for my first tab, I have professional requirements and the school calendar. So I just simply went to the district website and I printed off the school calendar so that I would be able to know when we would have school and when we would have days off.
Okay. I also included all of the school calendars. And I have some things that are a bit more specific to my classroom. I have a class list in this section. We had a student teaching timeline that our teachers provided us with, so I thought it would be helpful to have that in there. It's nice and handy whenever we need to refer to when we're picking up a subject or when we're giving it back. I also have our language arts block and all the essential questions that were given to us to help guide us whenever we were making our lessons. All of my university supervisor reflections and evaluations are in here as well. And I believe that is it for that part.
For the second tab from the table of contents, it is called my teaching schedule and my weekly reflections. So I chose to put my outline from Dr. Liu in that section, and then each week you will create a schedule that it will be sent to Dr. Liu, so he'll know whenever you'll be teaching. So I put all of those into this section, and then on the back side of them, each week I put my reflection in. So that if I ever needed to say, at the end of the semester when I'm creating my portfolio, I could say, okay, let's go back to week number 3. What did I do in week number 3? And I have each week the schedule on the front, and then on the back is the reflection for the particular week.
I pretty much have the same setup as Katie. I had both of my reflections and schedules for each week. And like she said, it's so easy to refer back to if you forget what you were teaching week 4, or wait, am I still teaching math? I can look back and see if it is there. And also with this, I included the daily log, where it's just kind of extra notes, maybe things that you didn't expect to be doing that day, but you ended up doing. That's included here as well, and it's just a simple Word document I keep running the entire time I'm at school, so then as I think of things, I can add them to this part of my portfolio.
I chose to put my daily log in a separate tab, and before that I have my observations from Dr. Liu. So whenever he would come to observe me, he would give me a goldenrod sheet, and I would put that in there so that I could go back and see what were his comments and where to improve on. And then I chose to set my daily log up. I printed online a form that you can put Post-it notes on, and I chose to write Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then I made a section for other. And on Mondays, I wrote different things that I did that day. It became challenging as the semester went on, especially when I was extremely busy, to be recording each day. So by the end of the semester now, I have just been writing a couple of notes at the end of the week. And I've been trying to say, okay, well, I went to this meeting, what was one thing that was really important about the meeting? But I have one of those for every week that I was student teaching. In the next tab, I have my classroom management. So Dr. Liu sent us different different materials each week that we could use. So one thing was 100 ways to praise children. And then I found that I created a list of extra things that whenever I had 5 extra minutes with the kids, what am I going to do? So I made a list of YouTube videos that I could watch, or books online to be read, different songs, different games, different exercises, that in case I had a little extra time, I put that in my classroom management tab. I also got from my co-op, I asked her, like, what are some of the school rules that I'll need to be aware of? And she gave me a list, and it's about assemblies and how to use the bathroom and buses and cafeteria, playground. It's rules that don't necessarily pertain to our classroom, but that our students must follow. And I also have another one about the behavior logs. Some of my students in my classroom have behavior logs, and this is just an outline for me of what I was expected to complete in them. And finally, our school district put in a new security system, so I also put that in there for my own reference of, okay, well, when I'm coming to school, what do I have to be doing, and what do I have to ask my co-op to do for me?
And another piece that you could include with your classroom management is if your classroom has a card system in place, or we actually about halfway through our experience with student teaching switched to something called Class Dojo, and it's each student has their own avatar, and it's a system where they can earn positive dojos for positive behavior, but they also can earn negative dojos for whenever they do not do something that they know they should be doing. So in here I included just a handout about what it is and how teachers can use it and how parents can also use it from home. So that's another part that we thought would be important to include in classroom management.
The next section that I have is the biggest section by far. It is my instruction. So it is where all of my lesson plans are. And I also have some student work samples. So first I've got, my teacher decided to group them by shapes. So I have a list of their shape groups so that I can remember, okay, whenever I'm planning something at home, which students am I planning for? And then I chose to include, Jess said that she shared this earlier, but this is our essential questions. It's a curriculum map that's given by the district. So I chose to put that in my instruction category so that I would be able to, whenever I'm planning, go back and review. Our co-ops decided to give us outlines of different expectations they had. So like in week 1 of certain curriculums, like what subject should we be teaching? I included that in there. Different pacing guides and curriculum maps that are given from the district are helpful to always have. So that's why putting them in a plastic sleeve is good, because if it gets spilled on, you can just wipe it right off. You can always turn the page and then put it back in so that you'll know right where you're at. And then are my lesson plans. So each week we have 2 sets of plans that we created. One was more of a block style plan, and then the second plan I put on the back side so that each week I would only have to grab 1 page protector to have on my desk. This is more of our reading block. Dr. Liu was very flexible in the sense of what he was expecting us to have for lesson plans, so we were able to follow our co-op's guide on that. So it was nice to be able to just include part of their lesson plans, and then as the semester went was different things that I had. So each week then I had my lesson plan, and then as I started to pick up different subjects, I would add more and more. So here I have my morning meeting outline. So I created something that said exactly what the steps will be for morning meeting. I have like our days of the week song. We have to count how many days we've been in school. We sing a song, and then the letter of the week, the word of the week, weather, and it goes on from there. It's just what your teacher might be expecting you to do. So that was helpful to have because there's so many steps, and if I forget one, then the children will have to let me know. And I thought, well, if I have a list, I can check them off each day as I go. On the back, I might have more information for myself. And as the weeks went on, we took on more and more responsibility. So I had then my readers in training. I have a list of the students. So I have these things for each week, so that, because each week we had new plans for guided reading and writ time, and it was easier to have a separate sheet for that because I wasn't always in my classroom. So I didn't want to have to take my whole binder with me. I could just pick out the sheet that I needed and just take that with me to the next classroom.
And as Katie said, this part of your portfolio will most likely be the largest because it's all of the work that you're doing and the things you are putting into practice in your room. So I wanted to jump ahead to what was probably one of our fullest weeks of full-time teaching. And again, I did the same thing, both lesson plans right in one sleeve. Actually, this one was a bit longer, so it went on to 2 sleeves. But that way it's right there, ready to go. Morning meeting, guided reading, writ, and then any materials that we created, we tried to make an extra copy for each other so that now we have a binder filled to the brim with things that we can use in the future. just a ton of materials that we can pull from, and it'll be easy to refer back to, oh, we did an activity with shapes, and I think it might have been around week 8, so I can look back and see, all right, this is where it was, and now these are the materials that we used. And also this week we had the chance to write sub-plans because we got to go on a professional development trip with our teachers. So here I included the sub-plans that I created. I can then refer to this in the future, and it is right there ready to go with the week that I made the plans for.
Jess and I also chose to have a clipboard in the classroom. I have a separate set of plans on there. So I tried to keep my plans that were in my notebook clean. That way, whenever I would have to take this to a job interview or anything like that, I could have a clean set, and I would try and go back and maybe change them if we had to change our schedule on the computer. But I also had a clipboard, like I said, with extra plans on them, and I would cross out things, and I would write little notes like, okay, I need to work with so-and-so afterwards on this. It was helpful to have 2 sets, I think, but also, like, you can use that as your way to, like, maneuver things around and say, okay, well, we didn't get to that today, so might have to work on that again tomorrow.
And I kind of started a collection in the back of those plans that I carried around with me and marked up. That way, again, if something doesn't make sense up here, this was really where I was writing and taking notes and reflecting, so I can go back then and see, okay, what was different this week, even though my plan said something otherwise.
The next section that I have is about technology. So I tried to print off different things that I created over the semester. So each week we had to make a morning message. So I just printed it off from the Smartboard program. Here's the other one. And then I created different math reviews. So I printed off from the Smartboard program what I have. And I also have a list of different YouTube videos that I showed, or different books that we read online, trying to make sure I'm capturing all the technology that I'm using. That was what was in that section for me.
And pretty much the same for me. I had all of the morning messages that I created right here, ready to go and refer to. And then something that we use daily is Power Teacher for attendance for our classroom. So I thought it was worthwhile just to make a quick printout of that. And it's what we use for our attendance and such.
The next section I have is my impact on student learning. So over the course of your student teaching experience, you'll be required to work with a few students or the whole class and figure out a way that you can impact their learning. I chose to work with a small group, and I have in my binder my pre-assessments. This is what I first got from what I absolutely asked them, bare bones, and this is what they gave me. And then I have some lesson plans, maybe a description of like what I would be expecting myself to do during the lesson. I also have typed up here the part that you have to complete for class. So I have my part 1. And then I have my what my students produced from the second lesson or the first lesson. Each time I collect it and I put multiple pages into one page protector sleeve. Page protectors, I think I ended up buying probably about 3 packs of them. So I started to use them a little bit more minimally as the semester went on, and I put 5 or 6 pages, all my student work samples, into one page protector sleeve, and I could easily just pull them out and then slide them back in as I needed them. So after each lesson, I collected work samples from them. So I had each of those in the impact on student learning section. And then I have my lesson plans for myself. And then I have my post-assessment. So what did the students gain from this project? After each one, too, I included what I had to type up for class. I wanted to ensure that I had a hard copy of that, and that in case Dr. Liu came in and wanted to see that, he would be able to look at my project and see what I had been working on. I collected all of the data, and then I typed it into charts, which was another part of class. And then I've got my final paper for what my impact on student learning led to.
And as Katie said, page protectors became very few and minimal towards the end of the semester because you realized how much you had already used. So my entire ISL ended up being in just one page protector to save on some of those. But again, like she said, it's easy just to pull out, know that there's a clean copy ready to go in case anyone would like to see it. And it was nice if my teacher wanted to see some of the data I was collecting, it was right there. I didn't have to try and search for it. I knew exactly where it was and knew that I had my final copy at hand at any time.
My last section, I chose to put student work samples at the end of my portfolio. So I worked with different small groups, and I obviously worked with the whole class. So I collected a few students each time. This became really challenging when you started to full-time teach because it wasn't always the first thing on your mind. So like on my desk calendar, I might write like, remember to collect student work samples on a specific day. And then I would be like, okay, that's the day I absolutely have to do it. So I would be like, okay, at the end of the day when I'm packing them up, I'd be like, okay, can you give me this and you give me this, and I'll just make a quick copy and I would give it right back to them. So I included some copies of those. I tried to get a variety of subjects. So I tried to get guided reading and readers in training time, and I tried to get math. But I also tried to get things that would have come from a given curriculum, but also things that Ms. Wolfer, Jess, or myself created. So it would give a good perspective of, okay, this is what Katie created, but how did her students use it? So I feel like that'd be something I could talk about later in a job interview.
And as Katie said, it was very helpful to kind of set a goal once things started getting busier in the classroom and we took on more responsibilities, that, okay, this week I want to collect this many artifacts from guided reading, or as she said, things that we created ourselves. It'll be neat to look back and see, oh, I created this, and then this is how my student responded to it back here in the work sample portion of our portfolios. And very important to get multiple ones. Don't just try and focus on one subject. It's very important to have several. That way you can get a cumulative view of how you did for the semester and how your students were responding. And even though my impact on student learning project was very precise into one topic, it was helpful to also be in the practice of collecting artifacts, because then it kept me on top of my impact on student learning project, because I knew I also needed to collect work samples for those as well. So it was just an all-around great way to look back and see how you were doing with your students in the classroom.
Your advisor will give you a syllabus and set their expectations for the semester. I chose to keep that in a different folder for myself because I felt like, okay, well, this is what I'll bring to school, and then whenever I have to go back and work at college, like that will be a separate folder. So I kept a folder for my student teaching binder. I also had one for Dr. Pyle's class, and then I had a separate one for Dr. Liu, which would be whenever he was coming to observe me, I would say, okay, like I need to bring that folder that day. And then I also had an additional binder, which would be my professional portfolio that I'll take on an interview with me. Some things that I think I learned from building my portfolio is it just really helped me to be organized. And whenever I would have a sub or whenever I would have a parent volunteer come into the room, like I could look at my binder and I could say, okay, this is exactly what I need you to be doing. Like it helps you keep your thought process through the day. And it's also good it's also good at the end of the semester because you can go back and say, where did I start? Look, I only had one subject the first week I was here. Like now I have the whole day. And then you slowly might start to give things back. I think it also helped me to reflect at the end of the week. You've had a really long week of teaching, and now you have to write a reflection. The daily log can really help you do that. It can help you to go back and assess, okay, well, on Monday, what did I do? That was 4 days ago now. I don't remember. So I tried to go back to Monday and be like, okay, well, I wrote down some notes, so let's see what I can reflect on for the week.
And I think it's very crucial to keep up with working on something like this. Don't wait until 3 weeks later when you have a stack this big to put in and say, oh my goodness, when did this happen? I found it effective to keep just a manila folder and put things in each day. If I knew I wouldn't have time to sit and physically put it in here, at least I knew by Friday I was going to put that manila folder full of materials into my binder, so then it was done, ready to go for the next week. And also, I know I spent some of my Sunday evenings printing some of the materials for the following week and already having them in here, because like Katie said, if you have a parent volunteer in, you know what is happening which day during which time, and you can kind of say, this is a great time for you to help me with this. And overall, it's just a great way to keep organized with everything you did for the semester. And as I mentioned earlier, you will have a ton of materials to refer to in the future.
Yeah.
The things that you did, the things you created or found. It's just a great way to have everything from your student teaching experience in one place.
I also chose, like Jess said, we have worked really closely together this whole semester, so I feel like anything that you make, if you can just make a paper copy of it or save it to a flash drive or to a computer or take a picture of it, now I have so much, and it doesn't matter what grade I would go on to teach now. Like, I would be able to look and say, okay, well, how can I adapt this to be for third grade or for fourth grade, even though I was in kindergarten? So it's helpful to have everything in one spot. And I also pulled out some things that I made, and I've created other file folders at home, and I might have all my literacy things together, all my math things together, everything I'd want to use in a whole group, or like my extra time things. Now I've got a huge collection at home, but Jess chose to keep some of it in her binder. But after student teaching, I'm sure you'll take things out and be able to use them, find a better way to use them as a resource.
Yep, definitely.
Yep.